Happy Tuesday, everyone.
Happy Tuesday.
So we are here to break down the aspects of AI in decision support systems or DSS environments. And last time we talked about the need to consider perception, comprehension, and projection or prediction. And so today we're going to really hone in on perception within decision support system environments. Okay, and how information presentation can impact these systems. So before we get started, I want to make one note around the fact that in some cases we were using the words situational awareness and situation awareness interchangeably. But in putting something out on social media, someone called out the fact that there are some sources that are misusing situational in error. So it is always, as it has been from the beginning, situation awareness. And that term was coined by Micah Ensley
Yep.
in the 90s. So we are huge fans of Dr. Ensley. I used to get giddy when I would read her work. So it's
Yep.
really exciting to talk about this topic. And okay, before I jump in, anything you want to add to that?
May no, but I think that was a good point on LinkedIn about yes, we do use situation awareness, and I know now and then I'll throw in the O at the at the tail end of that, just out of habit more than anything. So I think that was a good call out because it is situation awareness. Yep.
Yes. So when we think about decision support environments that include AI, you have to have the whole point around having that perceptual understanding is that you have to understand the system's functionality and capabilities, what it is not capable of, and ultimately how that can impact your decision making, right? So when we think about perception as a definition, it involves using sensory input to recognize and take in information, to do something with that information. And when you think about AI and decision support systems, understanding where to find information, what to do with that information, that sort of thing.
Yes. Yeah, and perception, right? It's the first point when you're making a decision. If you don't perceive there's a problem or information that needs your attention, then the rest is kind of a moot point. So yeah, I think that's why you have those tiers, and each one becomes important from a human factors perspective and things we can impact.
Mm-hmm. And I think that the term attention as a starting point in that conversation is really important because you have to know as a user or the human in the loop where to attend and where to look for information. And so in that regard, it is the responsibility of that system designer to utilize cues. So how do you incorporate cues to help to attend or to help the user attend to aspects of the system that they should focus on, take in that information and use it to make decisions?
Right. Yeah. So raising that awareness, and this becomes particularly important in those really complex or critical systems because things do get complex and things occur downstream that affect things later in the process. So the earlier you can at least capture that user's attention, so that they can perceive there may be a problem or there may be relevant data. Yes, you need to do that. And I know we'll talk about, and I tend to jump ahead all the time, but as a human factors person, we need to understand when and where that might occur under a variety of scenarios. But anyway, I won't get too far ahead of your tickers, Kenya, but because I think that might be one of them.
The key in what that we have to understand where to look for those cues. And so in some cases, we can couple auditory or visual cues with auditory cues. So when you think about and I like to use this in my class, your ears tell your eyes where to look.
Yes.
So if your ears tell your eyes where to look, that is allowing you as the designer to give that user some context around where to look for information. And so that auditory sound will cue them in terms of where to focus their attention from a visual perspective.
Right. And it's kind of redundant because if they're not looking, they're hearing. So, that is definitely an approach to take. And I think we could almost have a whole topic just on visual and auditory alerts and how you think about those, that sort of thing, how much information you give them in those alerts. So, definitely those are the kind of design decisions you have to make for that system.
Yes. And think about taking the design decisions to the next level, you now have to test those decisions out. And so when you think about testing, you want to do things from a scenario-based usability testing perspective. So making sure that you can incorporate as many aspects of that physical environment, the other systems involved, the different people that are going to be communicating and collaborating with the system so that you can then ensure that that system is complementary to those decisions. Because in a lot of cases, these systems are being used in critical environments.
Yes, very critical. Medical, hazardous environments. We've seen lots of examples where things went very south, went really wrong by not having, where it's perceived at the right point in time as well, and not upstream, where a problem occurred early on. You didn't get that alert. You waited until you kind of were in a meltdown situation before there was an alert. Makes it very difficult to backtrack once they perceive there's a problem. And I think even before you think about the design, one thing I just want to throw in there is from a research perspective. So before you're even designing these interfaces in this system, there should be a level of user research to even understand, all these working components and relationships and, the when, where, how, what type of thing. And that's often the case. And I talked about this a lot because of the work I did way back in the day around knowledge acquisition, where you're actually acquiring from the experts that knowledge to build your expert system, your AI, your algorithms. So I think, you need to make sure to pay attention to that piece of the puzzle, even before you go into designing and implementing and trying to figure out what these visuals or auditory cues might be.
That's right. In that research, your focus is on information presentation and context and ensuring that they're relevant, but also actionable, because this is around decision support.
Yes. So pull those, those experts in. You're going to need your everyday users as well, who may not be experts, but in first designing out and thinking about the system and acquiring that knowledge used to kind of fuel the AI component. These are all the things you really can capture when you're acquiring kind of the process or representation of the process for the system.
That's right. And I think in taking that to the next level, once you've refined that system and in usability testing, you've assessed that you have the right information in the right context. Now it's time to use simulations to help to train the users. And so when you think about the fact that this technology is still not perfect, and because it's being used in critical situations, you've got to use those simulations to help with that training and that knowledge acquisition for that user or that human in the loop in order for them to understand when it works, when it's relevant, how to read those output formats, when you should rely on your own understanding and capability because it's not there yet, or you as a human have a better capability in terms of making the right decision and that sort of thing. So I think that's really, really important in terms of that simulation component.
Yeah.
From a training, it's most important to focus on that in the context of training your users.
Yes, it is with real life scenarios, right? So with simulation training and back to the testing you were talking about, don't break it up in such fine components where you're just testing the UI, a piece of the UI. You really need to present it especially in the critical systems, that you may be designing, but really in all of them, kind of an end-to-end true in the context. What are your most critical scenarios that that you're aware of, where you need the user to be able to perceive the conditions, the issues. I know we're not talking about the comprehension and prediction part, but really you should capture all of that with your most critical scenarios. Really do it in the context. And that's for the testing piece and definitely for the training piece. A lot of times you've used that expert knowledge to develop these highly complex systems. Now you've got the end user who probably has some level of expertise or domain knowledge, but they might not be the people you're leveraging to actually understand all those details in the system as you're designing it out from a technical perspective. So, having them walk through these critical scenarios or be part of and have to respond in those situations can really be eye-opening for people.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And I think about how much it's going to require us to look differently at how people do their jobs and the aspects of their job that will not only require them to become experts in their craft and how they do their job, but also that AI and that decision support component that is now supplementing or augmenting some of what they're doing. It's now requiring a secondary level of knowledge and understanding, and like we'll get into next time, the comprehension component, because you are now not only responsible for your own action, but now you're having to understand the action of something that is a system that's automated. And now you've got to understand when and where and why around that, as well as yourself.
Exactly. Oh, I see you unmuted me. Yes, you do. And it does take the real life scenarios to be able to do that. And back to the training piece, I think, again, you're right. It's the testing before training and the actual training piece of things where you want those real scenarios, task-based scenarios and the critical task-based scenarios.
Mm-hmm. So we do have Samantha. Welcome, Samantha. So the question is, I may have misunderstood, but are you saying to conduct user research testing while training through simulations, a bit of two birds with one stone? So my take on that, and Gwen, you want to weigh in first?
No, I think you can do that, but I think when you go back with the user testing, I was mentioning that you want to do that pre-training before you have something out there in the market that people are actually using, where you're training them through these actual real life simulations. I think the user research, yes, that could be the testing, usability testing as well, but the usability testing also needs to occur early on before you're even at a training phase. So you can uncover things you need to change from a design or human factors perspective in the system. And then B, it may help you with the simulation training piece of things, but I see them as kind of two different things, although you could say, there are scenarios where it would be two birds with one stone, but normally I'd say, no, you better be doing that through usability testing prior to being in a situation of training.
And I echo your thoughts around things, because the challenges that might come in with doing the testing at the same time that you're doing the simulation is that you are in a point now where you're training someone on the expert system. And if you're still at that point of ironing out the kinks around the experience, you are now getting into a place where it's truly more testing than it is training. And so to Deanne's point, I think if you find things during that training that might give you opportunities to optimize or improve your training, how things are documented, how you run through things, how you communicate them to that user in that simulation exercise, that's helpful. But at that point, you want to have the system in a place where you're confident that the expert user that's interacting with that system can understand that this is the way the system is supposed to work in most instances or most cases. So yeah, that is, I think in we might find that in some cases we can do that with non-expert systems in some cases, but in the instance where this is helping someone actually do their job, we want to make sure that that system is in a place where it's really useful and not going to go off the rails and do some stuff that we just discovered because we're doing that usability testing. So thanks for your question.
And I was just going to say, Samantha, we never don't take advantage of the fact that we're always collecting data. So you can always glean new things, learnings from, training situations, but it's kind of a day late and a dollar short if it's out there at that point.
I think that point what we have to keep in mind is that these are expert systems that include AI. And so there's some level of retraining the algorithm. There's some complexity that's there that's outside of what you'll traditionally see in a system. And so when we think about ironing out those kinks ahead of that simulation and training, that's really, really critical because of that added complexity with incorporating AI. Well, thank you so much for your questions, Samantha, and thank you for joining us this week. We want to be cognizant of your time and look forward to seeing you next week. Any topics or questions that you have for us outside of this session, please do not hesitate to reach out. You can reach out to us or connect with us through email. And again, thanks for joining us, and we will see you next time.
Yeah.
Have a good week.
Bye.